Everything mankind has endured has been leading us towards one final conclusion, towards one final destination. Rebirth.
Hey everybody, I'm John Maffio, also known as MaffmanJones, doing something different today. I haven't reviewed a video game yet on my channel, and I haven't been much of a gamer lately, but I was an avid gamer back in my high school days, and I haven't had time to play a lot, but when a good game comes out, I find the time to play it. The first two Dead Space games are some of my favorite survival horror games to ever come into existence. Dead Space 1 was a great experience that was, for the first time, a unique experience, and the second one improved upon the first one and gave us some action, but not a whole lot to make it all Resident Evil 6. But I just played Dead Space 3. It took almost a week, but now I have had 24 hours after beating it to have a fully realized opinion, and people have been giving this game flack and criticism for the lack of scares and the excess on action and cliched storylines and stuff like that. But you know what? In my opinion, Dead Space 3 was a great addition to this franchise, a very fun one at that, and it even improves upon the mythology of Dead Space. What's fascinating to me is that Dead Space 1 was just this little indie game, in my opinion, at first, where you go onto an abandoned ship and you see some crazy aliens and you kill them and you try to get out alive. And then from there on, they've expanded the mythology and given a really, in my opinion, a solid story, which gives reason for this franchise to go on even to a Dead Space 4, 5, and believe me, by the end of this game, there is a reason for a sequel to happen to Dead Space 3. Concerning co-op, which is a new installment to the Dead Space franchise, I can't speak on behalf of it because I haven't played co-op yet, but I plan to in the future. I have heard it's really fun. And because I haven't played co-op, my rating for this game could be a little far-fetched and sketchy, but I'm just going based on the actual campaign overall. These games were always known for opening up with strong sequences, and this one is no different, but this one was more subtle in a way that it introduces the story of these markers. The markers are these things, if you don't know, that harness the power of these aliens, and it basically just creates death. It's a giant plague. Isaac Clarke, who's been through some crazy-ish in the last two games, his girlfriend Nicole is now dead, but he's gone past that, and he's developed a relationship with this girl he met in the Dead Space 2 game, Ellie. And they had a relationship, and apparently they broke up, and now she's going out with some dirtbag that you would see in any generic 80s movie. But Isaac is called upon the task of going to this Hoth-like planet from Star Wars, which is all snow, to recover a marker which could harm Earth and the rest of the universe. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but the story in this game, even though it's convoluted at times, cliched, and sometimes frustrating with the character relationships, I thought it was quite strong, and the actual narrative that you go through with Isaac Clarke is a very innovative and investing experience, which I was pulled into from the very first note. This game's story is pretty strong. Not as strong, scary-wise, as the first two, but just, if you're interested in this mythology, you will get a lot of satisfaction out of this, but you'll still be left with questions desired. Graphically, Dead Space 3 is one of the best looking games you can have on the Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 right now, even though this is the Xbox version, because just the atmosphere of the whole game, especially the new Hoth planet. I call it Hoth because I don't know the actual name of the planet, but it's like Hoth from Star Wars, okay? That's what I'm going to compare it to. It's really graphically incredible. You feel the weight and the gravitas of everything around you. And if you're really into this game, you really are invested emotionally and physically and mentally. A newly integrated system they have here is this weapon creation system where you can create your own guns or upgrade your guns or just play around with a bunch of customization options if you want to. And because I suck at building weapons in this game, so I didn't really do it much. I was fine with what I had. But if you want to and you want to seize the opportunity, it's a great opportunity and it's really fun. Speaking about the gameplay here, it's still amazing. It's typical Dead Space. Nothing was really changed, however, but in my opinion, a great idiom: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Every button on this controller has a purpose, and you really do feel like you're getting the most out of the gameplay. And speaking of boss battles and actual encounters with all these aliens and the scopes of space when you're doing these side missions and everything, by the way, there are side missions if you want to do them. And if you were worried for a lack of scares, don't worry, because even though there aren't as many scares as the first two games, there are scares to be had. And even though there's not that many pop-out scares, there's a lot of real suspense, intensity, and just fright within your mind, because you're going through some of these levels in the beginning, middle, and end, and you just have this feeling of dread because there's this new necromorph enemy type, and it looks like a skeleton with glowing red eyes, and they look like skeletons basically, and you can sneak around them. But if you get one of their attention, then hordes of these things run after you, and it's just really difficult and it's scary, so to the point you don't want to f with these things. And because you don't want to f with these things, you want to avoid them. But there's a part in this game where you have to sneak around them over and over again to get an objective done, and it was really intense. Speaking of the enemy types, there are a few new enemy types, a few really cool ones that aren't necromorphs, by the way, but for the most part it's same old stuff here. You've seen the necromorphs, and by the way, we are desensitized by necromorphs, so saying that isn't scary could be also partially your fault or our fault, because we've already seen 2 of these games with these necromorphs. So I don't blame the game developers. What I thought wasn't so good about this game was the convoluted story, which goes in really cliched and Hollywood-ish ways sometimes. The relationship between Ellie and Isaac and a couple other characters gets really out of hand sometimes, and so disparaged at points where I would actually just yell at the screen in frustration because these characters' motivations were just so off-putting and out there, where I thought it was just really contrived. There's also a lot of backtracking, which isn't too bad, but they do it throughout the game. And for all the puzzles that you have to accomplish, you have to finish 3 tasks. 3 tasks, always. And sometimes it got repetitive. Along with the gameplay sometimes towards the end, because you have these endless waves of necromorphs, which got really frustrating, because I felt like they were just using an excess on purpose to make the difficulty harder. Because there are more innovative ways to make a game difficult besides just throwing enemies at you. But yes, aside from the frustrations of some of the waves of necromorphs towards the end of the game, the convoluted Hollywood plot that is not as good as the first 2, Dead Space 3 is a great game. A great installment to the franchise. It ups the scale. It has incredible voice acting and details within the graphics of just the atmosphere and the characters too. You really feel the emotional core and the gravitas of the story. The action set pieces are difficult, but they don't take away from the experience, and some of them are really fun. And there are some scares to be had too. You will definitely be jumping out of your seat and going, ah! What lies next for this franchise and a possible Dead Space 4 could be potentially very exciting. And it gives me a Mass Effect 3 vibe, because the potential threat is very dangerous in scale and personally, and also the story could kick ass. Finally rating this game, converting my movie rating system to a game system, I would say that Dead Space 3 is a darn good game, which would be a 4 out of 5 stars. I would rate these games so far as Dead Space 1, 3, and 2. But it's really hard because all 3 games are solid. If you are a fan of Dead Space, if you have ever played Dead Space 1, 2, or 3, all of them, and if you completed Dead Space 3, let me know what you think, anything about Dead Space in the comments down below. I want to know what you guys think, because people are, I don't know, mixed opinions on this game. I am a movie aficionado, but I do love my games every now and then. If you are not a subscriber and you enjoyed this review, subscribe and also like this video. I am John from MaffmanJones Reviews, Movies, and Games now. See you next time.
I'm so sorry. Will all of us be made